Listen closely, for I will reveal a truth so simple and yet so hidden that most men spend their entire lives without ever perceiving it. Money, the very thing you rise in the morning to earn, the thing you sacrifice your time and your strength for, is not what you think it is. You believe money to be coins of silver, papers of value, or perhaps numbers glowing upon a screen. But all of these are mere disguises, masks worn by something far more dangerous and far more powerful. Money is an illusion, a belief system dressed in symbols, and it rules you because you submit to it. Consider this. A piece of paper is worthless when left alone in the forest. The animal that stumbles upon it does not kneel. The wind does not respect it. Fire consumes it without hesitation. Yet when stamped with the face of a ruler, when declared as currency by decree, that same paper becomes a weapon, a crown, a command that can purchase bread, armies, even loyalty. This transformation does not occur because the paper changed, but because men agreed to believe in its new identity. The true power of money lies not in its physical form, but in the collective faith that sustains it. This is why emperors, kings, and now bankers have always guarded the creation of money with such jealousy. To control money is not to control wealth. It is to control belief itself. And belief, once shaped, governs the actions of men more thoroughly than any chain of iron. A tyrant may subdue a city with soldiers, but once he controls the currency, he no longer needs the sword. The people themselves will police one another, exchanging their labor and their lives for symbols they dare not question. Let me ask you this. Why do you toil? Is it for survival, for dignity? Or is it because you have been conditioned to see money as the measure of your worth? From childhood, you are taught to pursue it, to save it, to sacrifice your hours and dreams in pursuit of this phantom. Even the most rebellious among you cannot escape its grasp, for even rebellion must be financed. And those who claim to despise money are often the first to be crushed by its absence. Such is the genius of this illusion. It ensnares both those who worship it and those who resist it. The rulers of states and empires understand this game well. They know that money, unlike gold or land, can be created at will, so long as the people continue to believe. With a single decree, with the printing of new notes or the changing of digital ledgers, they can alter the value of your labor, robbing you without ever unsheathing a blade. You call it inflation. They call it policy. And yet, men continue to believe, for the illusion is so deeply woven into their lives that they cannot imagine a world without it. Observe how the power of money surpasses the power of law. A law may tell you what you must not do, but money tells you what you can do. Laws are broken every day, but the absence of money cannot be ignored. Without it, you starve, you freeze, you are cast out from the very society that demands your obedience. Thus, money becomes a silent tyrant, one that demands loyalty without ever speaking a word. And like a tyrant, it does not beg, it commands. Even religion, once the supreme force over the minds of men, now bends before the altar of money. Churches are built with it, preachers are sustained by it, and faith itself is advertised and sold like any other product. What once claimed to save souls is now bound to the same illusion that enslaves bodies. And as for governments, they too are nothing without it, for no law can be enforced, no war fought, no ruler maintained without the endless flow of coin. Do you see the pattern? The coin is a token, the note a symbol, the digital number a mirage. What binds them all is not substance, but agreement. If tomorrow men collectively refuse to honor a currency, it would vanish like smoke. Entire empires have collapsed this way when faith in their money faltered. Yet while the illusion holds, it is stronger than steel. It can summon armies, topple thrones, and build monuments that stand for centuries. No, here lies the cruelest twist. Those who understand this illusion may wield it as a weapon, while those who do not will forever be its prey. The wealthy are not merely rich in possessions. They are rich in knowledge of how belief can be bent to their advantage. They do not chase money as the common man does. They control its flow, they dictate its scarcity, they profit from its very creation. And in doing so, they stand above the masses, who labor blindly, never questioning why they chase a shadow that was designed to control them. To dead as the modern chains of slavery into a full Machiavellian-style video script, minimum 900 words, no bullets, no visuals, no mention of keynotes, and no ending sentence. The narrator's voice will remain sharp, dark, and persuasive. If money is the great illusion, then debt is the invisible chain that binds men to their masters. You see, in past ages rulers enslaved with whips and shackles, but such crude tools provoked rebellion. Men fight against visible oppression, but they surrender quietly to invisible chains. And debt, unlike iron, is a chain that men place upon themselves willingly, believing it to be opportunity, progress, even freedom. Yet once locked, the debtor serves not only with his hands but with his very soul. Consider the worker who dreams of owning a home. He signs his name to a contract, believing he has purchased security for his family. In truth, he has not bought a house. He has purchased an obligation, one that will devour decades of his labor. The walls may be his in paper, but the debt makes him a tenant to the lender, and the lender holds the key to his future. Should he falter in his payments, his dreams will be seized without mercy. Thus he is chained not by force, but by the promise of what he already believes is his. The genius of this system lies in its subtlety. When a man is forced into servitude by a tyrant, he knows he is enslaved and may resist. But when a man volunteers for debt, he imagines himself free even as he works for another. He calls it ambition, responsibility, even adulthood. He brags of his credit score as though it were a badge of honor, not realizing it is merely the measure of how tightly his chains have been fastened. The rulers of finance smile, for they know they have forged a form of slavery that men defend with pride. Observe how debt extends beyond the individual. Nations themselves are shackled by it. Governments borrow endlessly, mortgaging the future of their people in exchange for power today. The rulers print promises, the lenders provide coin, and the citizens inherit the burden. Wars are fought not with treasure in hand, but with the borrowed wealth of generations yet unborn. These unborn children will grow to find themselves already indebted, bound by agreements they never signed, paying interest on chains forged before they could speak. And still, they are told it is noble, it is necessary, it is progress. This mechanism is no accident. It is the deliberate strategy of princes and bankers who long ago understood that perpetual debt ensures perpetual control. A man in debt will tolerate conditions he would never accept if he were free. He will work longer hours, endure humiliations, silence his anger, all to preserve the illusion that he is keeping his promises. And if a whole population is indebted, the rulers need not fear revolt, for who dares to rise up when default means ruin? Debt keeps men obedient, their energy spent not on rebellion but on repayment. The cruelest part of this design is interest. For with interest, a debt is never truly paid. The debtor believes he is approaching freedom as he makes his payments, but the lender ensures the chain is tightened anew with every cycle. The money borrowed is often repaid many times over, yet the obligation persists, stretching endlessly into the future. This is not a mistake. It is the very design of the system. The lender does not wish to be repaid, for repayment would end his control. He wishes instead to extract labor perpetually, milking the debtor like a cow that must never be slaughtered. Look around you, and you will see these chains everywhere. The student, shackled by loans before he has even begun his life, trained to believe education cannot be earned without decades of servitude. The family, trapped by mortgages and car payments, thinking themselves secure while every possession they claim is truly owned by their creditor. The consumer, dazzled by credit cards and promises of instant gratification, trading his future labor for present pleasure. Each believes he is exercising choice, when in truth he is surrendering freedom. And all the while the masters of finance grow rich, not from creating wealth, but from owning debt. Understand this debt is not merely financial. It is psychological, it is spiritual. A debtor carries not just the weight of his obligation, but the constant anxiety of servitude. He wakes with the thought of what he owes, he works with the thought of what he owes, he sleeps with the thought of what he owes. His imagination shrinks, his ambitions narrow, his life is measured not in possibilities but in payments. This quiet despair is the most effective prison ever constructed, for it requires no guards, no walls, no violence. The prisoner enforces the sentence himself. And yet, men defend this system. They argue that debt allows progress, that without it no one could own homes, businesses, or education. They repeat these words as though they were scripture, never asking who profits most from this arrangement. Yes, some debt can build, but it builds with a hidden cost. For every man who advances with borrowed coin, there is a master who claims his labor many times over. For every nation that rises on credit, there is a lender who tightens his grip on the world. Debt, they say, creates opportunity. In truth, it creates dependence. The rulers understand the secret: a man who is truly free has choices, and choices make him dangerous. A man without debt may walk away from injustice, he may refuse commands, he may act according to his own will, but a man bound by debt has no such luxury. He must obey, he must endure, he must comply, for the chain around his neck is invisible yet unbreakable. And when an entire people are bound in this way, their rulers rest easy, for rebellion cannot be fed by men who cannot afford to miss a single payment. Debt, then, is not a tool of progress but of power. It transforms citizens into servants, nations into colonies, dreams into burdens. It is the quiet mechanism by which rulers extend their dominion without lifting a sword. And as long as men believe debt is natural, as long as they accept it as the price of living, they will remain bound in servitude, offering their strength, their time, and even the lives of their children to masters they will never meet. The cycle of control, inflation, scarcity, abundance into a full Machiavellian style video script, minimum 900 words, engaging and sharp, no bullets, no visuals, no keynote headings, and no ending sentence. Power is not maintained by chance, nor is it preserved by generosity. It is preserved by strategy, by understanding the nature of men and the tools by which they are ruled. Among these tools, none is so subtle and so devastating as the manipulation of money itself. For rulers know a secret that the common man refuses to see. Money is not fixed, it is fluid. It can be expanded or contracted, made scarce or abundant, and by altering its flow, the masters of this world govern not only wealth, but the very behavior of entire nations. Imagine money as water in a great city. Too little, and the people thirst, fighting desperately for survival. Too much, and they drown in chaos, unable to value what is plentiful. The art of ruling lies in controlling this flow, tightening it when obedience is required, releasing it when the crowd must be pacified. Scarcity breeds desperation, abundance breeds carelessness, and in both states the people can be directed like cattle, moving not by their own reason but by their hunger and their fear. Consider the times of scarcity. When the flow of money is deliberately restricted, men find themselves unable to afford necessities. Food, shelter, medicine, all seem to slip further from their grasp. In this condition, men become desperate, and desperation is the soil in which obedience grows. A starving man will work for less than his labor is worth. A desperate nation will sell its resources cheaply, its dignity cheaply, its freedom cheaply. Scarcity, therefore, is not an accident of economics. It is a weapon, wielded by those who understand that suffering makes men pliable, their resistance softened by the urgency of their needs. Contrast this with abundance. When money floods into the system, the people rejoice. They believe themselves wealthy, they consume, they indulge, and they grow careless. In their excitement, they fail to see the trap being set. Abundance creates bubbles, illusions of prosperity that inevitably collapse. Yet while the bubble grows, men celebrate their rulers, believing themselves blessed by fortune. They buy homes at inflated prices, invest in empty promises, and consume luxuries they cannot sustain. And when the collapse comes, as it always does, they are ruined. But in their ruin, they become dependent once again upon the very rulers who engineered their rise and fall. This cycle of scarcity and abundance is as old as empire. In Rome, emperors debased their coinage, diluting silver with cheaper metals until the people's savings were worthless. Bread grew expensive, the populace restless, yet still they clung to the illusion until the empire itself rotted. In modern times, rulers wield tools far more sophisticated: printing presses, interest rates, digital ledgers. They inflate, they contract, they stimulate, they restrain, and the people, ignorant of the design, believe themselves victims of chance, of markets, of fate. But nothing is accidental. These tides are controlled, and those who understand the mechanism profit in every storm. Observe inflation, the silent thief. A man saves his money, believing he is protecting his future. Yet as rulers expand the supply of currency, his savings erode in value. The bread he once bought for 1 coin now requires 2, then 3, then 5. He works harder, yet grows poorer, while those who control the money supply grow richer. Inflation is not a natural disaster. It is a strategy. It transfers wealth from the many to the few, ensuring that the rulers always collect more than they distribute. And the people, untrained in this art, continue to blame themselves for their poverty, never realizing they have been robbed without a weapon drawn. Deflation, too, serves its purpose. When money is withdrawn from circulation, men cling tightly to what remains, refusing to spend, refusing to risk. Businesses collapse, unemployment rises, and despair spreads. Yet in this despair, the strong consume the weak. Wealthy rulers and their allies acquire properties, companies, and lands at a fraction of their worth. Deflation is famine, and famine creates opportunity, not for the many, but for the few who prepared, who understood that the tightening of money was inevitable, who waited patiently like wolves for the starving sheep. The cycle does not end with scarcity or abundance. It continues endlessly, a pendulum swinging back and forth, each swing orchestrated by those in power. And each swing has its victims. In times of abundance, the foolish grow arrogant and lose all. In times of scarcity, the desperate sell themselves for survival. The wise ruler understands that men must never be allowed to feel secure for long. Security breeds independence, and independence breeds rebellion. It is better to keep them uncertain, their hopes rising and falling with the tides of money, so that they look always to their rulers for rescue, never realizing the rescue is merely another trap. Even nations are subject to this cycle. Entire economies are inflated with loans and credit, lifted into artificial prosperity. Leaders boast of growth, of progress, of golden ages. But these ages rest upon borrowed time and borrowed wealth. When the crash arrives, as it always does, the nation staggers, forced to sell its independence to international creditors. Lands are sold, industries are privatized, resources are plundered, all in exchange for relief from the very crisis engineered by the manipulation of money. Thus nations become colonies not through conquest of armies but through conquest of finance. Do not believe that this is chaos. It is design. The rulers understand that men, like animals, are best controlled by alternating hunger and feast. Too much hunger and they revolt, too much feast and they grow arrogant. But a careful balance of both keeps them forever uncertain, forever dependent, forever obedient. The true genius of this strategy is that the people rarely blame their rulers. They blame markets, foreigners' fate, even themselves, never seeing the hand that pulls the strings. And while they search for answers in the wrong places, the rulers tighten their grip, growing stronger with every turn of the cycle. You must see now that money is not simply earned or spent. It is orchestrated. Its scarcity and abundance are the instruments by which rulers play their symphony of control. Those who understand this symphony position themselves to profit from both notes, rising when others fall, feeding when others starve. Those who do not understand remain forever in the audience, clapping and weeping on command, never realizing the performance was written long before they arrived. The world is divided not between rich and poor, nor between rulers and ruled, but between those who understand the game of money and those who remain its pawns. The majority live their entire lives as pawns, working, consuming, borrowing, obeying, never questioning why the board is set against them. A smaller few become players, men who rise not by chance but by comprehension of the hidden rules. And then there are the masters, the ones who design the game itself, who never roll the dice but always collect the winnings. The path before you is simple: remain a pawn, or learn to play as the prince. To begin, you must cast aside illusions. Most men are trained from childhood to believe that hard work alone leads to prosperity. They are told that if they labor diligently, if they sacrifice, if they obey, wealth will eventually flow to them. Yet look around, the hardest workers are not the wealthiest. The fields, the factories, the streets are filled with men who give their strength daily, yet die poor. Meanwhile, those who sit in offices, who manipulate numbers, who own the very money they lend, live in luxury. Do you see the lesson? Wealth is not earned by labor, but by control. If you cannot see this, you are condemned to servitude forever. The path to liberation begins with knowledge. You must learn how money is created, how debt is engineered, how scarcity and abundance are manipulated. Without this understanding, you are like a soldier on a battlefield, blindfolded, striking at shadows while the enemy surrounds you. But with this knowledge, the blindfold is removed, and you begin to see not only the traps laid before you but also the opportunities that others ignore. Knowledge itself does not make you free, but it makes freedom possible. Yet knowledge alone is insufficient. Many men read, study, and speak of these matters, but still remain slaves. Why? Because they lack the courage to act. To step out of the role of pawn requires audacity. It requires a willingness to abandon the comfort of the herd, to risk failure, to endure ridicule. The herd despises those who break away, for your courage reveals their cowardice. But understand this: if you seek power, you must accept that isolation is the price of freedom. The path to domination is even darker. For if liberation means freeing yourself from the chains of money, domination means forging chains for others. To dominate, you must do more than escape the game. You must learn to bend it. This is why rulers, bankers, and princes of commerce always appear ruthless. They understand that compassion without strength is weakness. They extend loans not out of kindness, but because debt ensures obedience. They manipulate scarcity not out of cruelty, but because hunger ensures compliance. They flood nations with credit not to enrich, but to ensnare. They are not moral, they are strategic. And in the realm of power, strategy always defeats morality. Do not deceive yourself into believing that you can master money while remaining untouched by its corrupting influence. To rise in this game is to confront your own hunger for power, your own willingness to wield the same weapons that have enslaved you. Some will choose liberation only, seeking merely to escape servitude. Others will hunger for more, seeking not only freedom but dominion. Neither path is easy. To liberate yourself requires discipline, intelligence, and unshakable will. To dominate requires all of these, and the ruthless courage to shape others into pawns. Reflect upon history, and you will see the pattern. The Medici did not become rulers of Florence by laboring in fields. They understood money's secrets, they bent them to their will, and they made princes and popes their debtors. Nations today fall not to invading armies, but to creditors who extend loans they know cannot be repaid. In both cases, the same principle applies. Those who understand the flow of money, and who are bold enough to direct it, ascend to power. Those who do not are ruled by it. You must decide, then, what role you will play. Will you continue as a pawn, comforting yourself with small pleasures while the masters drain your life? Or will you rise to the level of player, learning to maneuver, to invest, to anticipate the tides of scarcity and abundance? Or perhaps you will aspire to mastery, to domination, shaping others as they once shaped you. Each path is open, but only if you abandon the illusions that have been fed to you since birth. Most will never choose. They will cling to comfort, to the false security of steady wages and borrowed luxuries. They will scorn those who rise above them, not out of wisdom, but out of envy. They will defend the very system that enslaves them, for fear of facing the abyss of freedom. But for the few who dare, the rewards are immense. Liberation offers you peace, independence, and the dignity of living by your own will. Domination offers you power, influence, and the ability to shape the destiny of others. Both paths require sacrifice, but the sacrifice of a pawn is inevitable. The only question is whether your sacrifice feeds your own ascent or the ascent of your masters. The truth is harsh, but it is inescapable. Money will rule your life, either as your master or as your servant. To pretend otherwise is to live in delusion. To see clearly is to recognize the game, to study its mechanics, to wield its tools. Whether you choose the path of liberation or the path of domination, the decision must be made. To refuse to choose is still a choice, and it is the choice of the pawn, who waits passively for orders, who labors endlessly without reward, who dies never having lived by his own command,